Hi there, James. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, oh, thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
We're
How's
all
everybody?
we're all good, yeah. Thank you so
Can
much
you,
for making the time for coming here today with us. I mean, it really means a lot for us.
thanks for having me on. So can you hear me well, or do you hear noise in the background?
No, we can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, I'm in a hotel in Denmark, and I'm not sure
Oh, that's
anyway if it's
cool.
loud. Okay,
That's cool. So
yeah,
before we dive into this conversation, I want to give everyone here an introduction of who you are, a detailed introduction actually, because you've done a lot and I really want everyone here, as well as our potential viewers, to know more about you. So here we have James Felton Keith, who is the CEO at Inclusion Corporation and who is also an award-winning engineer and economist who was the first Black LGBTQ person to run for federal office in the States. He lectures at New York University in the Big Ideas course series, and as an activist, his data unions redefine the labor movement and personal data as the natural resource driving all corporate productivity. As an entrepreneur, he established the first international diversity and inclusion certification and the first insurance for a lack of inclusion based on an inclusion score. His biopolitical philosophy, inclusionism, is at the forefront of international relations and human rights advocacy. James has also incubated the data industry via his founding of data unions and personal data week conferences. He co-founded and edits the Ethics of Personal Data Collection series at Anthem Press. He and his institutions have either written or consulted on all of the seminal global cyber policy of the 2010s. He has founded multiple companies across the nonprofit insurtech, fintech, and adtech sectors, most notably Slay TV, LGBT Chambers, and Accrue.com. His expertise is in the ethnography of technology or the study of the culture of tech. Over the past 20 years between four continents, he has been obsessing about economic inclusion and how to get equity in the hands of the people who have increasingly less while the world becomes more productive from their input. And working between government and business, he regularly says it's necessary to have the mind of a CEO and the heart of a social worker to solve real people's problems. And his career transitioned after founding Detroit's LGBT Chamber of Commerce and the Pride Nights at the four big box American sports franchises NBA, NHL, MLB, and NFL. James has been appointed to the cabinet of elected officials, taken over for and advised CEOs, academics, governments, and non-profiteers. James is also an elected member of the New York Democratic Committee and is a frequent keynote at global venues like the United Nations Future Tech Congress, Data Protection World Forum, World Pride Human Rights Forum, to name a few. And each week he also hosts the WHCR 90.3 FM radio show, Inclusionism. So that was a really long, detailed introduction, but I really wanted everybody to know about you. So let's move on to the first question. So James, could you please provide us with a brief summary of your life story, precisely like a verbal life sketch, wherein how all of the experiences and encounters that you faced brought you to the exceptional position that you are in today?
Wow. Okay. That's a hard one, but I mean, I'll say the briefest way I can explain my life is so I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. In the for everyone not familiar, it's right here in the state, that looks the most like the hand. And it was a very it was a dire place in time. I grew up in the 80s in the sort of the height of the crack epidemic. And, I was this little Black queer kid in Detroit at that time and didn't have a lot of access. And I don't think I was expected to have a lot of access really to anything, resources to start a company, feed my family, feed myself, and the like. And I think those early experiences have really sort of driven me towards everything that I've been doing in my life. I mean, my life has just consistently been about trying to find a way to hack the system to provide myself really some sort of lifeline. But I feel like the majority of people, have grown up in situations like me, really no matter what country they're from. So my life story is really rooted in this this shell of trying to hack my way out of access to opportunity. I guess as an engineer, as I became a professional, as a mechanical engineer and macroeconomist, which are sort of my formal training. If anyone's wondering sort of what they should look at in school, I think everyone should get an engineering degree and then do other stuff. Not because engineers are awesome, but because it teaches people about process. And so my approach to my work has really been about solving distribution problems. I see all problems as distribution problems, whether, like, if you don't understand me on this talk, I'm distributing the wrong language. If people are overly impoverished, we're poorly distributing capital to them. If people don't have access to other, technological resources, social resources, et cetera, we're doing a bad job of distributing those. And so my work has really been geared around distributing access to opportunities across the board. And so whether I'm talking about data, or whether I'm talking about human rights, or whether I'm talking about international relations, I'm mainly just trying to figure out how to better distribute, access to opportunities for us to come together. And it's really sort of consumed my life over the course of the past 39, 40 years. It's weird. Yeah, I guess I'll be 40 in a few weeks. So I'm starting to feel, like a weird old man. But thank you all for, I guess, bringing the youth to this conversation. It's really inspiring. Yeah.
That was a wonderful response. Yeah. I mean, thank you firstly for sharing that with us. I find your life story really remarkable and very inspiring. It's great how you use those experiences and, you've cultivated them in such a way to bring you to the phenomenal position that you are in today. And this for sure has inspired me, because it just shows that, it doesn't matter whether you grew up in a good household or a bad household, or whether you had good experiences or not, as long as you, use those and cultivate them to turn it into your success. I think that's what matters the most. And now I'd like to give the opportunity to Alicia to ask her question. So Alicia, you may go ahead.
Hey, James. So firstly, it's really great having you here, and I really admire your work. And with that being said, as mentioned previously, it is said that you have incubated the data industry while you're founding of data unions and personal data week conferences. So may you give us an insight of what the data industry is actually like? As I think many potential listeners here and myself don't really have that much knowledge and familiarity with the concept of the data industry field as such. So, and with that, can you also give us some advice on how we as young individuals can play a prominent role in order to get involved in the data industry?
So I think, data is interesting. I like to say data is the new matter, not the new, water or the new oil or anything like that. Sorry, I'm walking and talking at the same time. I realize I have another meeting coming up, but I think the real reason that I got into data, and I think the reason why any of you should be interested in data or the data industry, is it's really the most micro entity or asset that we can assign ownership to and distribute. Again, back to those distribution problems that we want to solve. So if I look at, I'm going to do a bit of a physics analogy here. I like to think about sort of philosophically about people's value like that of energy. And we usually learn this, at least, in the States, around the third grade, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can change form, right? Energy is a real thing. It's a tangible thing that physicists sort of measure and engineers measure, right? They measure energy via friction. And so in that vein, what I'm doing is making value analogous to energy, but in the way that we see energy proliferate, what we're usually doing is looking at matter have friction or move in space, right? And from that, friction occurs and the energy proliferates. I'm looking at value in the same way from a data standpoint, data being analogous to matter, and transactions of data being analogous to the friction of matter. And instead of energy proliferating, value proliferating. So the reason I got fascinated with data is because I thought it was a way for me to, number one, prove and validate that people have intrinsic value, all people. And it's really based on the interactions or transactions, rather, that they have with each other. As far as younger people getting involved in the data industry, I would argue sort of it's the only industry available. Most of the work that's available out here today is sort of analyst work. as we automate systems, not just physical systems like machines and robots, but also business processes, the work world will become a world. And I don't think that work will go away. We can talk more about that. But I think the work world will become more of people sort of analyzing data and making sense of it for humans, and humans sort of critiquing processes that they've automated, either via robotics or software. And so the first way I would say to get in there is to try to understand processes first. I think a lot of people want to go to code school and learn the code, and that's fine. But I really do think a foundation in mechanical engineering sets you up to understand how everything works. Coders, they're a dime a dozen. But understanding process is a bigger opportunity, I think, because you can start to become a bit of the corporate rock star and solving distribution problems for how people develop code and deploy products and services. So I would say first step is to try to, if you have the capacity to or the want to look at process engineering or mechanical engineering. I thought I was going to be an artist when I was 17 years old, and then I ended up in engineering school because I needed a fallback. And from that, I ended up really falling in love with what engineering meant. I didn't love the schoolwork at all. I was a bad student, but I think starting in engineering was a great way to really to dig in and get to see a lot of the way the world works. Again, what engineers are usually doing is looking at how the world works and trying to solve distribution problems. And so I got to see a lot of companies and a lot of businesses early, and it helped inform what I was going to be able to do later. But my fascination with data is really more philosophical, more, even spiritual, if you will. It's just the weird thing about that word with data is sort of this tangible, identifiable thing. So sort of the negative reciprocal of spiritual. It's like maybe trying to quantify whatever the mesh of humanity is to distribute our access to participate. So sorry, I don't know if I got too deep in the weeds there, if I answered your question. Did I answer the question? Yeah.
Yes, you did. And that was a
Okay.
wonderful insight. And
Yeah.
I think many of us are not that familiar with the data industry. And I think all of the listeners here would have gained a wonderful insight with the in-depth knowledge that you provided us. And
Yeah.
so thanks a lot for
Yeah.
sharing with us that.
Yeah. If I could, just one thing about well, the data industry. So again, data is really becoming ubiquitous. So every industry is a data industry, right? Like General Motors, Tata Motors, Toyota Motors, they're really data companies now. And the cars are just devices, right? If you're in insurance, which is my industry, it's really a data industry, right? So if you focus on being able to understand and manipulate the data, you can really apply yourself to whatever industry is closest to home. I grew up in Detroit, so my career started in automotive, right? So yeah, like the data industry, I think the world is just becoming that one singular thing. I just wanted to add that folks focus on the problem that they want to solve. The industry will find them for sure. It's a lot to do out there. There's no shortage of work to be done. But yeah.
So thanks for that, James. Hi, it's so nice to meet you over here.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, so you're an entrepreneur and you also work for the government. So what is the work ethic like between running your own business and working for the government? And how do you maintain an appropriate balance between both these areas?
I came to the government work. Well, number one, thanks for the question. I think it's a good one. I do think often we differentiate industries and work type, but I guess when I got to government, it just sort of seemed like a moral imperative. I didn't realize this when I was younger, but as I grew up and met more sort of human rights and civil rights leaders, I realized they were all politicians. They're just all politicians. And they're interacting with real power, people who have real power, which are always political folks. And there's no real way around it. Whether you run a company or whatever, you still have to, you always, if you get really big, you run up against the state. And the state is just a representation of people, whether it's like the communist state in China or a democratic state in the United States. They're all endeavoring to represent people in a fair enough, at least, way where the people don't run them over, right? And so I realized if I was going to engage powerful entities well, that I had to sort of wrangle in politics and the government. And so to answer your question and how I sort of navigate both of those in running my company, I try to run it slightly like a politician. I know a lot of politicians come out and say, or people in government say they want to run government like a business, but I try to run, my business like a moral character. And I'm available to learn stuff or be challenged, but I do try to, when I ask my team to do things, have a reason to do it. It's something that I can back up, something that I would do myself if I had 10 arms. I'd rather hire, 4 more people to bring those extra 8 arms so that we can do something together instead of apart. And in my experience, at least, it inspires better followership from great leaders. I think when you approach them with sort of a moral or ethical reason to run your business, and it doesn't really matter if you're doing, like diversity and inclusion software for the insurance industry, which is where I am now, or whether you make, rivets, which are like weird little screws that have a smooth edge that go in the sheet metal. Even if you're doing that, right, and your business is to do that because you want to make great mechanical products for people who are using them that won't fall apart, if your moral imperative is to protect people and you're asking your team to do a good job and not slack off on it because, building these rivets the right way will protect people, then I think you can inspire, again, good collaboration, good followership, in a business that would seem like it doesn't require sort of a moral character to run it. So I sort of find my balance, again, back to your question, in remembering that my value is really just a derivative of my team. And if I lose their trust or lose their respect at any point in time, or can't validate verbally what my decisions were, what my actions were, then I lose all my authority and power. And I think that's exactly how governments and politicians work. And so I try to work that way in my business life. And it helps me sleep better at night too. I mean, sometimes you're like, did I do this right? Was I too aggressive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the government piece has really rounded me out. It's made me more of a humble person than maybe who I was in my 20s, when I just wanted to like make a bunch of money and like crash the gates. And anyway, that was me a while ago. Not necessarily anymore, but yeah.
That was like so wonderful and inspiring. I think we all learned a lot, like literally, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey James, I hope you are doing well and staying safe. So my question for you is, like, many members from Unite for Change are deeply interested in politics, government, social issues, and more. My question is, like, how can we get involved in the governmental arena at such a young age as ours?
So I'll say the best political actors, and you don't necessarily need to be an elected official, an elected, politician, or appointed a politician to be, a great one. But the best folks are really the activists, so great activists can become great elected officials. I mean, some of the greatest politicians, of our time, when I think about the United States, arguably Martin Luther King he's really a great politician, and he sort of forced the government's hand to be his partner in producing civil rights legislation. Nelson Mandela did a similar thing. Mahatma Gandhi did a similar thing. All these folks did a similar thing, but they were really activists first. And when I think about, again, the young people that I'm most familiar with, like the kids here in the United States that are, they're pro, new gun protections. Here over the past 20 years, there've been a lot of mass shootings, especially at schools, elementary schools. And so these kids have really mobilized, and they've created marches, et cetera. And as a result, they're real political players right now. If they endorse a candidate, a lot of donor dollars, a lot of power comes to them. And so I would say the best way to get involved is to start with your, most immediate passion. People like Greta Thunberg. I mean, she's arguably one of the top 5 politicians on the planet right now. She's, a kid. I think she just leaped over the age of 18, right? And so I think that's a great place to start. And I think about like a young man that I, had the privilege to get to know briefly in Brooklyn, New York, during last summer, during the Black Lives Matter protest. He was 20 years old. He started this protest group that worked with Black Lives Matter, but they were named something else, and they grew their ranks of extremely young people from a voting standpoint, because historically, young people don't vote. And he just, as a 22-year-old now, 2 years later, has won a city council seat in a big district in Brooklyn. But a lot of people around the country are noticing him. His name is Chio Say. He's got a cool brand. He's like Chinese and Haitian, but just looks like any, regular Black kid from Brooklyn. He grew up there. But again, he was an activist first. So I say the best way to get involved is to be an activist first. And when you see the opportunity to throw your hat in the ring and think you can get more votes than someone, if it is a democratic system, then I would give it a shot. When I ran my race for the first time, it was really because I'm a basic income advocate. And I remember I had all these intellectuals at a conference, and I said, we should do a march. And they were like, oh, what do marches do? After you march, it's over and it's pointless. People are always yelling in the streets. I was like, we're not getting anything done here, at conferences with ties on and Zooms, because we're not reaching the real people who need to hear our message. Anyway, I finally got their buy-in to come in March, and we're doing the 3rd annual Basic Income March this September. On my 40th birthday, it'll be in 40 countries. It's kind of miraculous. It'll probably get more than 40 countries, because it's weird that number is too matched. But the point is, after all these intellectuals came together to march in 2019, they came back after and they were sort of emotional and teary-eyed and crying, like, it was the best thing I've ever done. I was like, marches they're about people, they're human. You can literally feel people's heat and their sweat and their passion on them. And there's something, again, back to the earlier conversation, it's something spiritual about that. It's not church, but you could call it church. It's this sort of temple of people coming together around a central issue. And a lot of intellectuals or people who are removed from activism don't really realize that when they participate in something, that they'll have this sort of visceral emotional reaction to it. And that's really where politics rests. It's like, am I with you? Do I like you? Do I love you? Am I down to fight with you? And so I would say the best way to get involved is find that core issue that you can produce real activism around. Start there. And I think you'll see your followership and your fanfare grow, at which point you can directly engage whatever the political apparatus is, wherever it is that you want to engage it. That's how I would sort of hack in. But don't do, I just want to make one warning. Don't do the regular growing up, being a staffer for some politician. I mean, do that work, see how it works, but don't ever think that a life of being a politician is not like being an accountant. You're not going to work your way up to the top. No one's going to go, you did great with the numbers this week, and now you get to be, the person. It don't work like that. It's about power. Politics is about power and how you access it and move it, not about the fact that you know the most about the policy that was written yesterday. People don't care about that. They don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, so I totally agree about the power point. Like, many people have power, they don't use it wisely, but using it wisely is the most important thing, right? So like, your response was amazing, and I think many people must have got something from it, and the idea if they want to be involved in the governmental arena at our ages. So I have
yeah. Oh no, go ahead, go. Yeah.
So like, I have another question for you. So if you want to add something to that, you were saying something, I felt like.
No. Yeah, I was just agreeing. I was going to be redundant, but yeah.
Okay. So like, my next question is, what led you to find the organization Inclusion Corporation, like your organization?
Yeah. So again, it was really about sort of staying on the mission. I won't lie. I folded up my last political campaign because I got really sick with COVID last March before last, March of 2020. And we, to my surprise, the party still thought we did really well, even though I had stopped running the campaign. We had an election in June and I stopped in March when I got sick. My mother got sick. a few people in my building in New York died. It was just, I was like, this is crazy. I'm done with everything. I was just eating, hamburgers. I have a fetish for quarter pounders at McDonald's. And yeah, it's like my junk food. I love quarter pounders. So anyway, did that, gained some weight back after being sick. And I said, I'm done. But from there, to even intertangle this with your earlier question, there's always a little ego involved. And I was like, I should be the congressman. And I was a little depressed about it. But after I sort of picked myself up and people who were on my team were telling me, you have to move forward and figure out how you can still add value. I try to focus on, the mission. And my mission is to sort of disrupt how we distribute value, right? And so I think we can do that by better distributing tangible value or capital to people. And so the real idea behind Inclusion Corp, I had some insider knowledge of a new international standard being developed for diversity and inclusion on one hand, because of my activist work. And this is why people need to pair the activist with the business. So I have some unique knowledge of this standard via my activist work. It was about 10 years in the making. And on the other side, my work as an engineer and a software guy and a business process guy, I was like, I think we can take this international standard and build a process that is so rigorous and endorsed internationally that we can force every corporation to build in diversity and inclusion policy, which right now, I would say, there's the stick for diversity and inclusion is always there. And that's, the beating stick. There are people in the streets, there are protests everywhere, right? But the carrot has never really been there. There's never been this financial incentive and process to say you have to do it this way or you're doing it poorly. But now with this standard that's been ratified by 163 countries across the globe, moving that into a corporate process, something that people like myself are more familiar with, in my experience, I've only seen real change come from processes that are adopted pervasively throughout society. So I thought if we can turn this standard into a process and then automate its workflow via software, which I'm good at, then I think we have something that we can sell to the insurance industry so that the insurance industry can sell it to everyone else. And the way we use insurance is, I think, not unique here, but it is our true innovation. So the way insurance works is when you think about other process standards, whether we're talking about environmental or cyber standards or accounting standards, when you don't show that you have rigorous process in place, your risk potential goes up. And business is all either risk management or risk transfer. Insurance is risk transfer, saying I can't manage this, I have to transfer it. Risk management is I have a process, I can hold on to this. So we give the insurance guys a way to say, this is what risk management should look like. And if it doesn't look like this, you get the opportunity to charge every one of your clients more money. And the secret, or it's not a real secret, is everybody has insurance. So the insurance industry has us all hostage. And it ain't a bad thing, in my opinion. I think insurance is the real oldest industry in the world. At some point, some business people got together and said, we're going to protect each other. And so we're going to insure it, right? It's just a safety net. And so by giving this to insurance, they're now requiring companies across the globe to use D&I policies on par with the ISO standard, which is all I really care about. And I get two things out of that. I get to hack corporate culture by making them more inclusive to all of us who did not previously have access, the most powerful in any locale, right? And then the other thing that I get to do is, as we generate a valuation for this company, Inclusion Corporation, via our product Inclusion Score, I have the opportunity to take that money and do something that I really want to do as a politician with it, which is show people how it should be distributed and who's really valuable. So at our firm, instead of me sort of wanting or lusting after becoming Mark Zuckerberg or Michael Bloomberg, the real reason I started this company is because people are using the product widely. Like we're here in Denmark today, I'll be in Sweden tomorrow talking about this product and the policy and the international standard and how corporations should use it. The real play is the people who use the product and take this ISO assessment corporation by corporation are usually women, and they run the procurement department, the HR department, the product department. And as they use the product at their company, it creates ripple effects and competition within their industry for other firms to catch up. And that creates the value, because if I get, I don't know, if I get one auto company to do it, in which we work with Ford Motor Company right now, then everyone else has to do something similar to say that they're on par. And what those people, those usually women, have done in the procurement and human resources and product department at those firms is they install diversity and inclusion policy that's rigorous. They've created a ripple effect of value. And so what we do is I can see in the data points how much of our value as a company we owe them. And I think that the best way to distribute agency and distribute inclusion is through ownership stakes, and I don't call it capitalism, I call it inclusionism. But the real play is, instead of me running away with $1 billion valuation and acting like Mark Zuckerberg and becoming a philanthropist tomorrow, because I don't actually think philanthropy works and saves enough lives, even though it helps some people, but not enough. I'm going to redistribute it in what I call a data dividend, or what's really formally a productivity dividend. So people who participate in the productivity of our company will get a piece of the productivity of the company, just like investors and shareholders would. But we'll just call these people stakeholders. I think that is the most moral way to distribute value as we grow as a society. And so the reason I'll engage it, not only as a business guy, but as a politician, is because I want to challenge every business leader, every owner who owns too much equity in the companies that they have, to better distribute that equity to the rightful owners of the value that's created in their companies. And I think it's a total hack. I think the world is extremely productive today, 200 times as productive today as it was 50 years ago. And we don't get a dime for it. Wages haven't gone up anywhere globally. I don't care what country you're talking about, but productivity is way up. And so I think that the real hack is trying to find a new way to include the rest of us in the economy. And it ain't going to be wages. Not that jobs are going away. Every labor economist can tell you there are more jobs today or before the pandemic than there were the day before that. But they don't pay enough. They don't pay enough for folks to live. And so I think that we can better include people in the economy via an income increase, not necessarily just a wage increase. And I think that I can show people better how to do it by just starting my own company. So to answer your question, I know that was a really long-winded answer, but the real answer to your question is it's rooted in activism. I think I'm in a privileged enough space to create a $centimillion company. And so I'm just going to do that, distribute the money properly, and then challenge everyone else to follow suit and continue to run that political campaign. And so that's really what brought me to start the company. It's because I'm just fanatical about, I think I'm right. And there's a little ego and craziness involved in that. So sometimes I have to pause, take a nap, tell myself I'm, uglier than I think I am. But that's part of the process, I think I'm right. And I think the way we've been doing stuff my whole life is wrong. And so as the oldest millennial, and I don't know how you all feel about millennials, but most people over here are saying millennials are young and dumb and crazy. But I know the younger people were like the old folks. So as the old millennial, I feel like this is the activism that we can provide, is if we can hack how capitalism distributes value and call it inclusionism, then we're on a good path. And then it's just up to you all to sort of finish the work, because I'm gonna exhaust myself in a minute. I think people got a good 10, 20 years where they know everything. I got about 10 more years before everything I know is obsolete. People are get that old man out of here. So before all this starts going away, But anyway, I got 10 years. But yeah, that's why I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, your mindset is really inspiring. I hope other people also think like that and make this world a better place.
Yeah.
So thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I was truly marveled by all what you just told us right now. You really broke down how your company really works, what the insurance industry is really like. It's really insightful and very complex. So I definitely am going to listen to this recording and, pause it in certain areas to actually understand properly what you just said. And I'd like to move on to my next question. So you are also an award-winning engineer and economist, which are two phenomenal areas in their own right. And, honestly, I am somebody who is deeply passionate in the study of economics, and I also aspire to become an economist in the near future. So what can you advise me, not just me, but all those who really want to become economists in the future? What can you advise us to do that will help us go into the right track of pursuing our goal of becoming an economist on a nationwide level?
I think, so yeah, I think the first thing is, so I guess I was lucky in that I had a few great mentors. And I think I had thought about this earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt one of the questions. I think it was Alicia's question earlier. I felt like my answer, as so many people, when they talk about their career, their answer is a bit vague about how they really got there, because they sort of hit the bullet points. But I think there's a lot of mentorship along the way. And I had this one great mentor who was an economist, and he was a former military guy here in the States. And we would always talk about incentives. So we would always talk about economics as a discipline of incentives, right? Like, how are folks incentivized to do anything? And I became sort of obsessed with that because I already had my regular, poor kid issues that I explained earlier. And so I wanted to figure out how to incentivize, not just demand that people give me access, but incentivize that. And so the majority of, after I got out of engineering school, of the sort of economics problems that I was concerned with, I started to realize over time were very similar to the distribution problems I was working with as an engineer. And so I would say, so I focused that on if I could get into a good graduate school for economics. And not because I really respected the school, but mainly because I knew that it was about the network from the school. So if you all are thinking about where you go to school and why, I would say forget even how big the school is or what the name recognition is. If you don't think that you can grasp a great network from that school, it's not worth you doing it. Like, they need to back you up like a fraternity. It needs to be total elitism, cronyism, because that's where they offer you access. So anyway, I was, I wanted to go to Harvard, right? I was like, I need to go to Harvard and study economics at Harvard. And I wanted to just be as sort of the armchair economist with the chin and the gray hair and just talking about what I thought I knew about the world. I was like, that would be cool to just be that dude who never takes off the necktie and talk about economics all day. I was like, because then I don't have to do any work. I just talk about what I think. I could be right or wrong. I just talk about what I think. But I'd say what really got me on that path was really a passion for incentivizing people to solve these distribution problems. So when I took what I knew about distribution and engineering and paired it with the incentives that I saw in economics, I saw a real opportunity to make change. And, as I'm sure a lot of economists, do when they sort of come to the discipline. But what I learned over time, in school and outside of school. So after I left school, I started working with financial firms and software companies to do sort of macroeconomics and econometrics, basically dealing with data and trying to make predictions about the markets, et cetera. I started a company called accrue.com where I was their chief economist, and we were building software platforms on models, economic models that we were building. But what I would say is, there are two types of economists. You have academic economists who have PhDs and they stay in academia forever and they do research. And that's a good thing. And then you have sort of practicing folks who are out in industry trying to, make decisions either with people's resources or money, whether it's a company, a financial company, or a different type of company. And I would say both are valuable depending on whatever you want to change in the world. So I think it all starts with all of you, with what you want to change first. My biggest obsession was distributing value. Can I make value a tangible thing to distribute? And so I wrote a diversity letter. So the best way, here's a secret, not sure if anyone shared this with you all, the best way to get into a top school and acquire a top network is to write a hell of a diversity letter. And basically you start with how you're this disenfranchised person. And then you have a hack of an idea. I don't mean a heck of an idea, like a hack of an idea to say, I want to take these 2 or 3 interdisciplinary things and change the world as a result, right? And so whatever those 2 or 3 things may be, you put them together in a paper, in an essay, and you present yourself to the world as a potential rock star worth investing in. And those schools will buy into and admit the people that they think are the best investment for the future. So those schools act like entrepreneurs. They're looking at all of us as assets. So when you leave and you're Barack Obama, Harvard gets to say, we made that boy, which is ridiculous. But they want to say it because it does wonders for their brand, you know, and yours. And so you got to think about that way. They really want people who can write about what they want to do. And economists, at least the ones who get well known, the Nobel laureates and the ones who are on TV making predictions and are usually wrong, myself included, they're really writers more than anything else. So I would say, even if your focus is economics, hone the skill of writing essays and creating narrative and creating story around whatever your passion issue is, because for as many facts and statistics that we can all rattle off as, you know, people who deal in quantifiable spaces, the best, I guess, change agent that we distribute as humans are really stories. So we have to be able to tell a good story about who we are and what we want to see change and why it should change in order for it to change. And those big universities and the big companies, they know that. And so they want to buy into a person who looks authentic and that they have something unique to say. And then they tell you a good story about how and why the world should change. And they'll back it up with a bunch of data. But those, you know, understudy economists can put all that together in a white paper. Someone, you still got to come out and thumb it out, you know, like that Obama thumb. He always does this. I'm like, what is he doing? What he's really doing is pacing himself so he doesn't like run amok. He's watching it. He's like self-regulating as a public speaker. So I know I said a lot there, but what I would focus on is how you write about the thing you want to change and how you can use economics to explain why that should change. And for that, I think people will start to pay attention, whether your audience are universities that you want to adopt you, or whether you're going straight into the professional work, because you don't need anyone's PhD to be an economist. You could just, you say stuff and be right and challenge, you know, the status quo. I just add one more anecdotal story. When I worked briefly at Michigan State University as a staff economist with the Land Policy Institute, I really only got there because my girlfriend at the time, she was my fiance, she was doing her PhD at Michigan State. And I didn't really have anything to do. I was working for Hewlett Packard part-time. I was just getting back into the US, having lived in Johannesburg for years. But I was nerdy about economics and land use and land distribution. And so I would go to their conferences in the audience and just beat up the people on the stage and make it about me. So I would just ask them questions they couldn't answer, and I would answer it for them, and then go make them go like, And they go like, who was this kid? He is talking the most stuff, you know? And so we had some conversations later, me and the executive director, who was a Nigerian guy who came over to the States. And I ended up doing some work with them around microeconomics and community economics, and also stuff like waste management, like how we take commodities waste and redeploy it, et cetera. So we were doing like interesting projects, and those were sort of things I was really interested in as a young person, like what's sustainable. You know, we were doing that, you know, circa 2009. So I would say it's more about that. It's more about the story you tell, about the problem you want to solve. And of course, yeah, there's some school involved on the rigors of, you know, microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, et cetera. But it's really about that thing that you want to solve. So I would say focus on that first, and write a lot. Like whatever your thoughts are all the time, even if you're writing it and throwing it away, you don't want people to see it. Always just be practicing how you're reading, what good writers are writing versus how you write. Like, I don't think about myself as a good writer, but I try to read what storytellers write and take tidbits and do my little technical writing, on the side, because that's the way we get our message across. And even if we have great ideas and no one can digest them, they don't matter. Like, they just don't matter. Yeah. So I would do that, write that little story. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally so interested, and I was so blown away by everything you just said. And thank you for sharing that little secret with us on how we can get into a good school by just writing our way through. I think that is something not many of us had known. A lot of us didn't look at economics as something we could really utilize with the power of writing. I think many of us just look at economics as a study, a big book, memorize material and put it down in your examinations. But this really gives us, this really makes us look at economics with a better perspective and a new perspective. And I'm really grateful for that, because now that just, increases my interest and it sparks my curiosity to delve more into the field of economics. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So now let's give the opportunity to Umama to ask her question.
Hi, James. So my question for you is, what is your typical daily routine like?
Well, it's actually gotten a lot more uniform with COVID. So usually I'm at home in New York. I wake up in the summertime whenever the sun comes up. I mean, I'm basically an old man. I usually go to bed at 10:30. So, and I wake up pretty early. But from there, I'm just sort of sitting up. I drink a lot of chai tea every morning, probably too much. I end up drinking like a half a gallon of milk with it. It's really more milk than water in there. So I sort of sit and I drink that and I sort of, come to life. And then around 7:30, 8, I'm on the computer because my team is sort of distributed. So we're either talking about tech stuff or talking about client stuff. Up until about 9:30 when the markets open in the States. My husband is an equities trader. So the house usually quiets down because we're both working from home. So he's got a bajillion computers and screens over here trading. And then I'm over here with my one computer, talking to my team. And so, I usually sort of spend the morning doing that. I'm working until like 11 or 12. I try to eat in the middle of that. I eat like the same thing every day. I just eat oatmeal and put it in a microwave. But again, I'm an old man, I need to eat oatmeal. So, do whatever you like to do. And then in the afternoon, it's really more the same. I'm really sitting at a computer a lot, unless, I have to run out to take meetings again, which is rare now because of COVID. I don't really think we're going to go back to the old world where I was sort of running around the city, going place to place in a suit every day. I got a closet full of suits that I never really wear anymore unless I'm traveling. So now a lot of my work during the day is really like a good, 8 hours on or off. Sometimes I'll take a break, I've been trying to force myself to take a break now to like work out or go running, but it doesn't work because I'm, a bit obsessive about my work. And so, it's really sitting there working until maybe like the close of business or close of the markets, which is like 4 p.m. And then I start taking less calls. But usually I have like a podcast or something that's going on after that. And then, in the early evenings, like 5, 6, 7 o'clock, if there's nothing already on the calendar, like an activist event or a community event, we usually sit and we just sit on the couch and eat dinner, and we'll watch a lot of TV, like a lot of content. So I think we're in this television renaissance, and I'm trying to look at how storytellers are telling stories on TV. The movie format, the shorts, the long forms, the web series, these little 5 to 12 minute shows that have 10, 12 episodes. I'm obsessed with how people tell stories now, because a lot of my life is trying to place something relatively complex that I'm doing in a story. So, and my husband used to work in the advertising industry, so we're real critical of stories on TV in general. And so So I watch a lot of content, and then when it's basketball season, I use that to take over the TV, and then I try to watch. I got like the NBA TV package, so I watch all the games, and yeah, and I'll do that up until like 10:30 and go to sleep, and then I do it all over again the next day. Again, I try to force myself to take breaks in the middle of the day to, like go outside or walk or work out or be human. And I will say this for the entrepreneurs of the world. You got to find a way to sort of differentiate your life where your emotions don't rise and fall based on having big wins during the day. So I'm sort of that person. When I'm the downside to me just being focused on the computer most of the day is if I don't get any great news during the day, even to this day, I'm not extremely excited. Or if one meeting cancels, or if everything isn't great, like one of my meetings canceled earlier, that was an investor meeting. And so, I'm sort of managing, being a little upset about that. So I think it's best, not that I do this. It's like telling everybody, go pray, but I haven't been doing it. It's best, to sort of have a life, have other stuff going on. So, I try to, I don't know, FaceTime with my mom, et cetera, do stuff like that. But basically my day is I wake up, I stretch and drink tea for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'm working for like 8 hours. And then I stop to either watch basketball or, something on HBO, because I think HBO does all the content the best. Like HBO kills it, and everything else is just close. I mean, there's a bunch of other good stuff, but HBO, that show I May Destroy You by that British girl. Anyway, dope. It's a dope show. So yeah, that's my typical day. It used to be a lot different when I was in campaign mode, when I was running for office. And it was usually all over the place. Like every day was a bit different. And I'm sort of getting some of that now. Now that I'm traveling for these 2 weeks, every day will be a bit different and hectic, but stuff is really already on the calendar. My life is pretty much scheduled about 2 weeks in advance, but never really more than that, because it's too fluid to commit to things more than like 2 weeks out, unless there's a bunch of money involved. Like I got a speech coming up in September, and they were like, you want to come for this fee? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out how to be there. I'll be there. So it works like that. It's, it sucks. Enjoy the youth while you can, because, you start working and it's crazy.
Thank you for letting us in your daily routine. And honestly, that sounds like a routine I would like to achieve, because I would love to wake up early in the morning and then, go back to sleep, because I sleep at like 6 a.m.
Yes.
So, I would love to sleep early and wake up early. So thank you.
That's better. Yeah. Yeah, that's better than working the whole day straight. Yeah, take a nap. I will say that I do take naps sometimes. So sometimes I will take a 30-minute nap at like 1 o'clock. I'll take, if there's a gap in between meetings and I'm exhausted, or one meeting was stressful, to get away from stuff, I'll take a nap. Yeah. Sometimes I just drink a beer in the middle of the day. I'm not like the drink at the end of the day guy. I'm like one IPA or brown ale in the middle of the day. That'll do it for me. I don't know if that was, inappropriate. Are y'all old enough to drink? Anyway, but that's how I do it. So I'm not a 6-pack at the end of the night kind of guy. I'm a 1 beer for lunch guy, and then I go to sleep, and I'm back up at 2, and I'm back on the computer.
So James, what you said about data is so true. They say that the data industry is becoming the next oil industry. Apart from that, I had a question for you. You're involved in a plethora of different endeavors, your business, activism, running for elections, which is extremely inspiring. How do you ensure that you spare out time to relax, unwind, spend time with your loved ones, and take care of your physical as well as mental health and faith?
That's the downside of it, right? So like I explained earlier, other than that 1 beer that I get to have, or the tea in the morning, right? I don't find a whole lot of peace. I think my lower back hurts, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm ignoring it. Right now, like right this second. So, again, I try to remind myself to be present. It's not easy though. It's not easy to do. I think I've just gotten to the point at 40 years old where my life's projects are starting to converge on themselves into one thing. Like I'm just doing Inclusion Corp and I just advise on a few books that are being written. That's it. All the other stuff is stuff I found it and they're moving and running on their own, but I'm not directly involved. I don't run the data union. I don't run the income movement. I don't run any of those. I'm ideologically aligned. And if I can offer opportunities or relationships to fundraise, et cetera, I'm all for it. I'm there to sort of be their politician in resident, right? To help them meet people that I might have access to that they don't. But I will say over the course of the past 15 years, right? From 25 to or 24 to 39 years old, my life has been a bit of a grind. I have not had a lot of vacations or any that I can remember. I've messed up a few relationships by neglecting those relationships to take a meeting. Like I don't have kids because my mother was a great mother. She sacrificed everything for us. And I don't think I could do it. I think if my phone rang and someone said we got a meeting, I'd be like, well, I'll be there. I'll be at the meeting. And I don't think everyone, will make, great parents. Again, I think my mission is so narrow and my window to achieve it is so narrow that I have to focus on that. And so, yeah, I think the downside of that is for someone looking for more leisure in life or more time with loved ones, with family, this is not really what they're going to get. Like I'm going to be away from home for 2 weeks, starting a couple of days ago. I've been away beginning this trip. And it helps that, you have a spouse or partner who is aligned with that. Because before I got married, to be really candid, I wasn't in a relationship where my ex was aligned with that. And so I was like living in Joburg, living in China, coming back and forth, trying to start companies, failing, starting over again. And my ex at the time, I got engaged in like 2006 and then we broke it off in 2012. So for 6 years I was engaged to be married and I was traveling the whole time. And she was like at the end, like, you either gotta stay here, never go anywhere else, or that's it. And I was like, I love you to death, but I'm going to work in the morning because that's all I do. And it may sound a little tragic and it very well may be. I mean, some of this stuff ain't for everybody. There's a lot of ways to, I think, get involved, stay involved, and be a piece of the change, whether you're on the business side or academic side or the governmental or activism side. And then some of us are so obsessed and arguably riddled in our own ego that we think we can do a really heavy lift. And that's sort of where I am. And it is, on one end, it looks and reads well on paper. On the other end, it is exhausting. And I got like these very real bags under here. And so, I don't know. I don't know how to say that I have a real, I was at my niece's first birthday party a couple months ago and I was on my phone and people are like, where are you? What are you doing right now? You want to come here? You want to eat cake? I don't eat cake. I don't eat cake. I don't eat pie. You don't get to look like this at 40 for free. And I feel like I look bad on this camera right now. And so my vanity and ego are playing into my obsession with my work. And so I'm actively trying to morally manage vanity and ego and produce my work without being totally removed from my family, but definitely not being the greatest participant in my broader family. I mean, me and my immediate family that lives in my house, we're great. Everybody else that have like the family picnics, etc., I might not make it because I'm in Copenhagen. And it seems exotic and nice to those people. But, it's raining outside. It ain't great over here in Copenhagen. I'm here for work, So I wish I had a rosy thing to say, like, you can do it all. And you probably can. Learn from what I'm saying. Do it better. Be more available to, I don't know, be emotional and be available to people. I also come from a time where, we just sort of, I'm not the huggy, kissy, love you guy. Like I am there theoretically, but sort of the toxicity of my masculinity is rooted in like, I don't want to talk about my emotions right now. Let's just do work. Let's do the spreadsheet. And that's problematic. That's problematic. And so my hope is that, that you all's generation just, does it a little bit better than we did. But for the work I'm doing, yeah, I don't get to make it to every family event. So, but I talk to my mom every couple of days. So I don't know if that counts, if that helps.
I think at the end of the day, somebody who has so many achievements, you have to abide by the 24/7 capitalist work grant. It's unbeatable. And it's great that you've done so much and still maintained some relations.
Yeah, I think, you have to sort of stay on the ground. But again, I would just add that, I would say equally, like I have a younger sister, she's 2 years younger than me, but we feel more like twins. She's the one with the new daughter. And, I think her life, she's been an educator for 15 years, and her husband's a fireman who was in the army, and he's an artist, and they live, in my opinion, like this extraordinary life. And I would consider it also, an achievement. I think one reason and I know we're running a bit over, I see it's 5:33 now, but I just add one reason I'm really sort of obsessed with this idea that people have an intrinsic value and that they're owed an equity stake for their contribution of that value is rooted in the idea that the things that I've been available to do in my life are really just skill sets and opportunities that I have. Like the fact that I can start this company, but I'm also an engineer who also understands economics, who has also been involved in human rights and political activism. It's just my story. And so I'm uniquely positioned per my skill sets to offer the company and the products and services that I'm offering. But it does not mean that I should feel entitled to, all of the value of that institution because I think, I'm so great. I think that is the real big problem. In the modern world, when we see people who have had sort of interdisciplinary things stack up on them and they create relatively extraordinary things, they get into this sort of Benjamin Franklin, Tupac idea. And what I mean by that is Ben Franklin wrote an essay a bajillion years ago called The Self-Made Man. And then Tupac would talk about himself being a self-made man in his rap songs in the 90s over and over again. But there's no such thing as a self-made man or woman or a person of trans experience, or you name it. We all have certain skill sets based on our life experiences. I am the middlemost child in my lineage of cousins, so in my generation. Everyone in my generation and my family has different parents. Like they either have a parent with a divorce and they live with a step parent. My sister and I are the only people with the same two parents whose parents really focused on us. We had a whole lot of extra opportunities. And so per those opportunities and skills, I'm in a unique position to do what I'm doing. And so that's my offering. I'm doing that. But it should be stated that everyone else is also posting up their offering and it is valuable and they should be included in the value equation. If I'm a prolific earner and I do great things, it is because I am a derivative of those people and I owe them something. Even if I can't make it to their birthday party or eat that ice cream cake that they do, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. But I owe them. I owe them because I have avoided eating an ice cream cake so I can run far on their behalf. I think that is just the way that we should look at society. So I'm just doing what I can. And there's definitely, the downsides to it, like my, lower back problems, et cetera. But, we do what we can. And we should do it in community. So yeah, I'm a part of that community that eats ice cream cake. Yeah, I don't know where I got that from. But yeah, that's all I got. Yeah.
I think that's really great. And just get your back problems checked once.
Oh, you broke up a little bit there. Check on the back problems? Yeah, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, James.
Yep. Oh, hey, okay, oh, we got one more question. Okay, how you doing?
How are you doing?
Is it Anissa? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, I'm Anissa.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question for you, James. So since we have completed more than half of 2021, what has been the highlight of this year for you? And is there anything you wish to accomplish before 2022 begin?
Yes. So the highlight has been, that's a good question. I think the highlight has been the launching of our product inclusion score. I didn't know if we would get it off the ground or if it would look the way it does, but it's been well received sort of by the market. People like the way the tech works. So that's a big win. And we got a really, really huge company to commit to using it, which changes everything. And I think, so it's been a decent year. It hasn't been exactly what I wanted, but I think that what I would want before the end of the year is I'm a business guy. I'm committed to this company, so I need a valuation. The way we measure ourselves is, our firm's valuation, and so I need a valuation above $50 million in the next 60 days. That would make me, happiest. I don't know if that sounds ridiculous to say out loud, but that is the real goal. That's why I'm over here in these Nordic countries this week. I'm, interacting with folks about that. So I think, that's the objective. That would make 2021 great leading into 2022 so that we could move towards what I talked about earlier, which is having a very public conversation about how you trap and distribute value to the people who are really owed it versus consuming it all for yourself because you own all of the legal rights to that institution, to that company. So yeah, it's been a good year. I think I'm happier than I have been in most years. I'm the kind of person that usually when I'm stressed out, I lose a bunch of weight instead of gain a bunch of weight. But I'm at my peace weight right now, at least my doctor says. So I like to use it as a measurement of, I'm happy. It's been a good year. I got over COVID. I got that vaccine. So, that was a plus. I think the biggest plus was when this really large insurance company said, we're going to use Inclusion Corp and the Inclusion Score product to push out to the entire industry. Because that changed, again, the valuation of our business and how many people we could touch with the product. So that was sort of my happiest moment, is when we got that phone call that they were going to move forward. And for a new company, that's everything, having a big company to be able to grow into, it's everything. So yeah, that's been my 2021. It's been a good year. 08, 2012, better years, but this has been a good year so far. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that for us.
Thank you, Nisa.
Hi, James. So my question for you is there any piece of advice you'd like to give to us and our potential viewers and listeners on how we can stay on track to pursue our dreams, regardless of our race, skin color, and orientations?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is hard to do, but I think if it is possible I think my advice would be, again, if it is possible, because I don't know that it is for everyone, but to be deliberate about what you want to see change, and focus on that. I'm not, and some people may disagree with this. I'd actually love to have this debate, but I'm not the guy. I don't sort of believe in the jack of all trades theory. I don't regularly meet people who can do a whole bunch of stuff well. Even if your work is sort of interdisciplinary, it usually it does what it does, and you innovate via that interdisciplinary nature, and then you end up focusing on a thing. And so I would say focus is key, but in being deliberate when you're young, I think the way to find sort of your lane is to have a bunch of experiences. So when I say deliberate and you're a new person, I think the objective should be to have as many experiences as possible, even if you don't see how they immediately benefit you. Like if there's any travel involved, just do it. I think travel is the only sort of expense that makes you richer. Because when you come back, you know so much new stuff. I think I got lucky and got to go to China as a young professional, and it just blew my mind. I never wanted to come back. And it killed that engagement that I talked about earlier, in 2006. I probably shouldn't have done that. Probably oversold myself and my commitments. But, I was young, so I was allowed to, make mistakes, as people do. So I would say, yeah, sort of be deliberate in trying to experience everything possible before you sort of refine and narrow what your path is. I would also say, just be willing to soak up whatever older people think about the way the world works, while still holding near and dear to yourself that they are wrong, me included, right? So you take in what we think we know and just go, they're wrong, I can do it better. But definitely taking their perspective about how they've gotten to where they are, because everyone who existed before you and even before my time, they weren't just sort of frivolously, letting the world, run amok. They were trying to do stuff, but we can do it better, right? And so you all can do it better than me. So I would say, keep that chip on your shoulder about, I like him, but I could do it better. I could totally do this better, while experiencing the world. And then you'll look up and be like, yeah, certain people will be interviewing you and you go, yeah, I did it better. I did it better. And the world will be a better place as a result. I think my battery is about to die and I don't have that European plug-in. All I have is my American plug-in. I'm at like 3%. So I don't know if this is going to kill me.
No worries. Yeah. If you leave the meeting, it's fine. I just wanted to, before we just abruptly end, thank you so much. You kept talking about bringing value to different areas. I felt you brought a lot of value to this meeting here.
Oh,
so thank you so much, James, for taking the time and for coming on with us for this call and this conversation today. It really meant a lot to all of us.
No, thank you. It was fun. I'm glad you all are doing this. I hope it grows. This was great. It was fun. Even I thought I was going to do 30 minutes, but after we got to talking, I was like, we gotta keep talking. So
yeah, I mean, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We hope you have a great day and stay safe and keep succeeding in all what you do.
Yeah, we'll do. All right.
All right.
See y'all soon. All
Bye.
right. Thank you. All right.